Hi everyone, this is James and I am here about to conduct this week's Oracle Outlook video reading. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome, and if you're a returning viewer and subscriber, I'd like to say thank you for circling back and taking that extra step to subscribe to the channel. It means the world to me that you would support my work and the content on the channel in that way. Okay, so as you can see, we have one deck on the table, and I have a little bit of an intro to share with you all regarding the deck choice. And so if you'd rather bypass the intro and get right to the reading when it starts, then I will be leaving a timestamp in the description box below and in the comment section for you. Okay, but if you are still here and you want to hear the intro, so the deck on the table is actually my very own tarot deck. I made this myself, and it is the Mitchell AI Tarot. And this was a project I collaborated with AI. I did it as a lark, and I started with one card just to see what it would look like if I used AI for a tarot card, and I liked the result of the first card so much that I made 77 more. And so here we are. Actually, let me correct myself. So I made 79 more because this deck has 80 cards in it. Okay, but the reason for using tarot and breaking the tradition of working with my Mitchell fortune telling oracle cards is that I had a dream, and in the dream I was gifted a set of tarot and tarot cards. And the thing about the set of tarot cards is that they were on a large sheet, and they were perforated, which means it had perforations and you had to kind of punch them out of the sheet. You may have seen books on the market where they have like tarot decks inexpensively for people who are just starting out, but they're in the pages of a book. Or you may have seen black and white tarot decks in the pages of a book where you punch them out of the pages and then you color them. It's a meditative exercise, but it's also a way to bond with your tarot deck when you color it in yourself. So you may have seen those, but it was something similar to that, only that the cards were on one large sheet. But like I said, someone had gifted me this. And so I take my dreams very seriously, especially the ones where cards are presented. So I stopped and thought, like, because I have spent so much time working with the Mitchell fortune telling oracle cards, I took away from the dream immediately was that I'm being asked to reintroduce tarot into my practice. And so I thought, because I knew I was going to be filming a video, I thought, well, why not here? So that is the reason for the deck choice. It's because I really feel like I'm being called to bring tarot back into my practice in some shape, form, or fashion, aside from working with clients, because I still read tarot with clients. So we have the deck on the table. The spread that I'm going to be working with is one I discovered over the course of the weekend, and so it's going to be a very simple line of 7. And the prompt for each card is going to be, what can we possibly expect for? And then each card is going to represent one day in the week. So the way that I read for the weekly readings is I read from Monday, so today being Monday, November the 3rd, and we're going to read to the following Sunday, which will be November the 9th. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and shuffle the cards. Alright, so the cards have been shuffled, cut, and dealt, and as you can see, I arranged them in a simple line of 7. And so like I said, the prompts for each card is going to be, what can we possibly expect for and then each card's going to represent one particular day of the week. So we're going to start with Monday. This is Monday's card. So depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching this early enough in your day, you could see how your day is going to unfold. I'm filming this on Monday morning. If it's later in the day and you're just catching this, then you could allow this card to be what we call, or what I call, a retrospective view. So that means you're taking a review of the day and seeing how the card had played into that. Okay? So the card for Monday is, okay, so here we have the Five of Earth. I'll hold the card up a little closer. So the Five of Earth is also known as the Five of Pentacles in a tarot set like the Rider-Waite-Smith version. And so in my deck, I went with the elements. And so the Five of Earth is a card that can talk about worries or concerns about material matters. So that is one possibility. So this could be concerns about money. If you are in business for yourself, then sometimes this card is known as the Feast and Famine card, or Feast or Famine card, which means that your business runs in cycles. With the image on the card, with it being winter, we're moving more into the change of seasons. So this could be where you might be experiencing cooler temperatures where you are, right? So there is a possibility. The other meaning of this card can be about being out in the cold, right? And so that's a metaphor for some form of rejection or isolation. You know, it's like being on the outside looking in, feeling like you don't particularly fit in or belong to a particular group or community, some form of rejection, things like that. So it could be a matter of, you know, how do you move through that particular type of experience where you're feeling like you're on the outside looking in, right? So there's that. And then the last thing I would say about this card is that it can be, for people who are spiritually minded, this could be a change. 5 is the number of change, a change regarding your spiritual belief systems, right? This card is governed by the Hierophant in the Tower from the Major Arcana. So this card would be influenced by that. So this could be a change in belief systems. One of the songs that I hear in my mind sometimes with this card is the song Losing My Religion, right? So it could be a matter of that. The only other thing I would say about this card, you know, in wrapping up or summing it up, is also too that there could be something having to do with the physical, like your physical body. And so people may be experiencing minor colds or some sort of ailments, things like that. And, you know, and needing to kind of maybe change your routine in some way. So it could be a change in diet or some kind of change in physical activity, but something would be changing that would better help you recover. So again, Five of Earth, some things about like being concerned about money, a change in business where there may be, you know, you're moving into maybe some ebb rather than flow. It could also be that there's some changes going on physically with your body. And then the last would, of course, be, you know, dealing with the idea of being on the outside looking in and feeling like an outsider. So that's what I would say here with this card. So now, moving on to what can we possibly expect for Tuesday. And here we have the Ace of Air. This is a card, and I like it coming after Five of Earth. This is a card about a triumph, victory, or success. So if there is a challenge here on Monday, because this card could be potentially challenging, Tuesday might be better. There may be an answer or a solution to that particular challenge, because one of the meanings of the Ace of Air for me is that it can represent, you know, getting some clarity for a challenging situation, right? So there is that to consider. Oh, and I didn't say, the Ace of Air, it would be the Ace of Swords in a tarot pack like the Rider-Waite-Smith. Okay, so very nice to see. This card would suggest keeping an open mind, right? Because the suit of air for me represents the mind. So keeping an open mind for an idea. That could be the jumping off point for a new experience for you. Ace of Air could also represent a job or career change. So if somebody's been in a period of lack, maybe with money, then this card might suggest a time where a change in job or career is on the horizon, right? So this could be like a literally, there's that expression, what a difference a day makes, right? So this could be like somebody may be looking for work or out of work, and then the next day they get a job. But it could also be that somebody is getting the signal here that it's time to change jobs or change careers, right? And then the last thing I will say, this is a more mundane type thing. The Ace of Air could also be a cautionary card about either putting pressure on yourself or being pressured externally, right? So it could also be too, like, being mindful, and that was not a pun that was intended, because I talked about this being the suit of the mind, being mindful of where pressure is being placed on you. So again, this is about a triumph, victory, success. This could be about a job or career change, an answer or solution to a problem. And also too, let me say this, if you are initiating something new, because aces represent potential for the future, if you're initiating something new, then this card would suggest that it might get off to a bumpy start, but do not let the bumps in the road, metaphorically, deter you. Right? So that's what I want to say with Ace of Air. So now, what can we possibly expect for Wednesday? Here's the card. And here we have Five of Water. This is the Five of Cups. And so the Five of Water is a card that talks about disappointment, right? And so this could be, we have to manage our expectations on Wednesday, because for me, the suit of water can be a relationship-oriented suit. And when I say relationships, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. Relationships come in all forms and stripes. And this card would suggest sometimes when we have expectations of others, sometimes because those people can't fulfill those expectations, we find ourselves experiencing disappointment, right? So I forget who the author was, but I read a book one time, and I think it was called Expectation Hangover, yeah? So if I remember the author, I will leave it in the comment section down below. But it talked about, how do you deal with, expectations from other people or in relationship with other people, and they're not fulfilled and they're not met, right? And then sometimes, too, we have our own expectations. We have expectations we place on ourselves that don't get fulfilled, right? But again, this card can be about disappointments, disappointments with expectations. It can also be about regret, remorse. And it could also be that somebody is actually in a grieving process, right? But if this is about regret or remorse with the past, then this card would say, how can you work through those feelings, because you really can't change the past. All you can do is learn from it, right? And so how can you let it be water under the bridge, so to speak? Right? And then the other thing that I noticed, just looking at the cards, we have 2 5s. So this could be a week where change is highlighted. The number 5 represents change or some kind of activity or action. Because I tend to think of the number 5 being associated with the 5 fingers on the hand, right? So that for me represents action and activity, being hands-on with something. Right? So I'm seeing that for Wednesday. So now what can we expect possibly for Thursday? And here we have Page of Earth. So Page of Earth is the student of the tarot, right? So this could be about learning something. Pages, no matter what the suit that the page is attached to, all the pages can represent being at a learning stage of development, right? So this could literally be that there's somebody who's enrolled in a course or some form of study or needing to read up on something. But it could also be, learning about what it is that you value in life, right? Because the suit of Earth, which is pentacles or coins in the more traditional tarot packs, can talk about our values. And so that could be the value that we place on material things, but also our internal value system, right? Our set of core values. So it could just be like you're coming to a place in life where maybe you're learning, and it could be that you're learning through your own physical experiences what it is that you value in life, right? And for some people, it could be actually learning the value of education, learning the value of study, things like that. So now I will also draw an additional card at the end, because for me, in my own practice, when I pull a page, I usually pull another card with the prompt being, what does this page have to offer me in terms of news or message? Because all the pages can represent news and messages, because they represent messengers as well. Okay, and then the other thing I will note here is that we have now 2 cards from the suit of Earth, and so that's becoming ruling majority. And so that could be like there's a focus or a concentration this week on material matters and material concerns, also about our resources and our assets. Yeah, and also too, like I said earlier, about what it is that we value. All right, so that's what I want to say about the page of Earth in a moment. Before I go on, this is the card in the deck for me, one of the cards in the deck actually, that can talk about being a reader, because the young man in the image is reading a book. So that's a pun for being a reader. So somebody may be learning a new divination system, a way of reading. And it doesn't necessarily have to be cards. I mean, my preferred method is cards, but it could be any system of divination, and maybe studying more on that, reading up on it, actually working with the tool itself. So I'm seeing that. Okay. And it could also be, if I'm reading order of the cards, it could be that somebody may be focusing on reading to help them move through these particular situations if they read for themselves, right? And I'm also looking here, if I combine these cards, it may be somebody's going through a bit of a downturn or slow period when it comes to their own reading practice if they read professionally, right? Because the suit of Earth can also be about either what we do for money or our career even, right? So there's that as well. Okay, so now moving on to, we had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is Friday. What can we possibly expect on Friday? And here we have the Sun. So for me, the Sun is the best card in the tarot deck. So it could be that things are brightening up, right? Because the Sun can represent something bright, or like a bright spot. It's a card that can talk about happiness, joy, personal satisfaction, or personal achievement. It is also a card that can talk about money. So it's very interesting that it comes on the heels of the 2 Earth cards, Page of Earth in particular, right? So if we look at these 2 cards, this could be talking about an individual who's very bright, right? If I pair these 2, somebody who's very bright, who has either a positive outlook on life, a sunny demeanor, right? That kind of thing. Now, the Sun can also be about achievement and celebrating that achievement, right? So there's that. But also, too, it could be a reminder, like you may be reminded somehow, some way, on Thursday, on Friday, I had to count to make sure that I had the day right. On Friday, going into the weekend, that, especially with the challenging cards, that the image of the sunflower is a reminder that the sunflower always faces the sun, and it is a very strong flower. It bends, but it never breaks. So for me, that's always a metaphor for when we go through the challenges in life. Some of them may stretch you or bend you, but they won't break you, right? So there is that to consider. So that's what I want to offer with the Sun. The Sun, again, is the best card in the deck. It usually represents happiness, personal achievement, and also to the reminder that, things in life, they may test you, they may challenge you, they may stretch you, but they won't break you. Okay, and so let's move on to the card for Saturday. So this is what can we possibly expect for Saturday. And here we have the Knight of Water. So we have a court card here. So the Knight of Water is a card that can talk about being a spiritual seeker. For me, this is a search for meaning in that regard, because the Knights can represent focus, action, and direction, right? So this could be somebody who's exploring something spiritually related and moving forward with that. It could also be a something having to do with your emotions and your feelings. This is known as the Lover card. So it could work two ways. Either somebody could be coming into someone's life, and at this point in the reading, I would say that this is not going to apply to everybody who's watching, right? But it could be somebody coming into one's romantic life in that way, because again, he can represent the lover. Now, if it's not that, then it could be like we are being charged, and when I say we, I'm talking about the collective we are all being charged to consider moving in the direction of what we love, and that could be in terms of a craft, a skill, a hobby, something that we love, and then committing to that. Because one of the challenges of the Knight of Water is that he likes things, maybe even loves things, but his commitment and follow through could always use some work. That's how I read that, right? So that's what I want to say about the Knight of Water. Now, if I mirror Knight of Water and Page of Earth, this is also a card that can talk about either focusing on or an interest in divination. And so I'm going to claim that message for myself, simply being because this card can also represent a Piscean person, and I am Pisces, and I already told you in the intro story about how my dream was, at least my takeaway on the dream, was getting me to re-engage with tarot, right? And so that could be a message for me, right? And so, but this is Saturday going into the weekend. But really the gist of this is about focusing on what it is that you love and taking action on that. So that could be a relationship. What can you do to foster more love in your relationship? If it's a hobby or some pursuit, then what can you do to commit to that more, especially if you say you love it, right? Okay. So then the final card rounding out the week, this would be what can we possibly expect on Sunday. And here we have the Six of Earth. So I like this because we had an Earth card at the beginning, one in the middle, and then one at the very end, right? So it's almost like they're bookending or creating pillars for the reading. And here we move from a challenging Earth card to a more positive one, right? So now you can see by the image of Six of Earth, this is about, the giving and receiving of money. This is a card for me that can talk about money changing hands. So the fact that it's at the end of the line could be being on the receiving end of money, right? This could also be a card about having your needs met, right? So this card can be about charity. It could be about donations, gifts. It could also be, if you loaned money out to someone, maybe someone in need, right? Because this card here on the other end could be about basic needs being met and needing assistance with that. That maybe if you helped somebody out, it's going to come back to you, right? But now this card can also be about being in service to others. So now what I talked about here with the possible business person who may be in ebb, this card would suggest, serving people with something that they need, right? So it's about meeting the needs of other people. So it could be like, maybe taking a look at your business and saying, how is it meeting a need? What are the needs of the market or the demographic or the audience that you're serving? And then really ask yourself the hard question, are you really meeting that need? What is it that people value? Or what value do you bring to the market, right? And the only other thing I would say about this card can sometimes be about supply and demand, keeping with the business thing. So it could just be about, just being aware that is there enough supply in what it is that you're offering to meet the demand. But again, that card is about, at the heart of it, it's about, giving and receiving in balance, right? If we make this about relationships, Knight of Water, about relationships, it's about making sure that everybody involved in the relationship, again, no matter what type of relationship it is, not just the romantic variety, but making sure that there's giving and receiving in equal measure, right? If not, then there's a problem. There's an imbalance there that needs to be addressed. I guess that's the best word I could use for that in the moment. Addressed, right? So I'm going to leave it there. Oh no, I was about to say I'm going to leave it there, but I need to pull a card for the Page of Earth. So I'm just really going to just pull one right off the top of the deck. And here we have the Seven of Earth. So this is the message card. So now, as the message card, and I like the fact that it's in the middle of the line, right? Because I talked about this card being the card of the reader. So this card could be like the heart of the reading itself. If that's the case, then the Seven of Earth is a card that talks about looking at our lives and evaluating it, right? This card can be looking at the things that we have invested our time, energy, and resources into, and seeing if we've gotten the return on that investment. So we're being asked this week to really just pay attention to where are we putting our time, where are we putting our energy, where are we putting our resources, and are we reaping, well, we're going to be reaping our harvest, but are we reaping the harvest that we intended when we planted those metaphorical seeds, yeah? So now for some people, it could be one of the things that you may need to consider in terms of time and energy is taking a break. One of the things that I love about the image in the Seven of Earth is that the person has already done the work and they're in this position of waiting for the harvest, right? So in my more traditional religious circles, we used to call this process seed, time, and harvest, yes? So people may be in the time part of the seed, time, harvest equation, yeah? And if that's the case, it could be some people are being encouraged to take a pause, take a step back, take a break, right? So especially for those of us who kind of work or maybe are overworked, that kind of thing, how can you find time this week to take a break, right? There's that. The other thing here is just continuing to look at our lives, just evaluating. This is about evaluation and assessment, right? And doing the work between separating what is valuable from what is worthless, right? I'm going with the idea of that expression, the wheat, separating the wheat from the chaff, right, or the chaff. And that's usually about a separation process about what's valuable, the wheat, and what's worthless, the chaff, right, or the chaff, you know. So that is really what I want to share about maybe at the heart of the line this week is that we're all being encouraged to do a value assessment. And with that, I'm going to end the reading there. Thank you so much if you made it all the way through to this point for giving me the gift of your time. I never take it lightly. And I hope you enjoyed this departure from what I have been doing and considered the norm. So I will be back next week with my beloved Mitchell Fortune Telling Oracle cards. Unless Spirit, through a dream, dictates something else I need to do with my divination practice. But whatever we do, we will do it together in the next video. So until then, take care, be well, and have a great week.